Hey folks, I'm here today in my garage, obviously, and I have got 3 bags in front of me that come from a week-long guiding session that I did involving different environments. One day was spent on snow, one day was spent on an easy rock climb leading up to a very long rappel that involves some short pitching and some fixed lines, and the final climbing event was a multi-pitch that took a different day. So same client the whole time, did have access to the car. So what I decided to do was show how the equipment might be different for the different climbs. So I'm going to start with, first of all, the alpine, the snow climb. And so that looks something like this. So I've got an 8.4 rope here. It's 35 meters long, nice and light, short, gets the job done. So that's the rope involved. Then a new company from France called Blue Ice, they came up with this alpine harness. It is almost hysterical how light it is. It weighs 3 ounces. It has a couple little sidebars here for a nice screw and maybe a couple of things to clip onto your waist belt, but that's pretty much it. It is so comfortable. It's unbelievable. And I can get this thing down into the smallest bag, this one right here. This is the bag this goes into. So nice harness on that, not really that expensive. Then I've got some gear that I might carry. And again, of course, it's going to vary depending on the climb. Length, is there any ice? What's the snow conditions like? Temperature, all that sort of stuff. But for what I did, I just wanted to have a couple of basics, right? I did bring my happy little tri-cams. These are from days gone by almost. I don't know how popular they are anymore, but for the Alpine, you can hardly beat them because they insert into a crack like a nut. So that's pretty impressive. But then also if you turn them and roll them on their sides, you get the 3 points of protection here, 3 points of contact, 1, 2, and 3, and then it pulls on itself and it functions like a passive cam. So they're also not very expensive, so I don't mind leaving one if I have to. I'd rather leave something for $20 than leave something for $75. So got a couple other slings here, and so then that makes up that part of the rack that I might be using if I need rock. But in this particular climb, I didn't really need that. But what I did need was I need a couple of these pickets. So these are 2 feet long. They're sort of the newer version, which involves a cable that is standard and comes with the picket. So you'd have to do some cable cutting to get this thing off. But basically, this gives you some good options. I don't necessarily have to carry a runner. I just got to carry a carabiner, and it is attached to the middle of the picket. So that means I can T-slot it like this just fine, or I can also drive it in like a standard picket in various fashions, but as long as I slot out this cable so it doesn't come up and pull over the snow. The other nice thing about this is it's got a nice head on it, so I can beat the heck out of it and not worry about all the disintegration that old pickets with just the aluminum coming up all the way up to the top had. So I carry 2 of those. I also, sometimes I do this. This is actually lighter than a picket. I like this thing because it's a hammer. And so in hard snow, I find it just a little quicker and easier to just beat the crap out of the picket into the firm snow versus the upside down approach with the ice axe this way, which is sort of the standard way if I don't have the hammer. But the hammer can also function for me as a third anchor in the snow, in either straight in or also as a T-slot. So that's the stuff that I carried when I was on the snow. Relatively easy snow climb, not overly steep, but I was using some of these things to protect the client as we went up the snow. And of course we had crampons, and we spent the whole time doing snow school and all that sort of stuff. So this video isn't really about that. It's just about the equipment that I might bring in that environment. So we're stepping up now to a relatively easy 500-foot ascent to the top of a thing called the Toad, one of our favorite rappels over here in the Western Sierra. And it's a 200-foot rappel, and so I really wanted this client to experience that rappel on his own, and he had to come up with a backup system and so that was good for him. But getting up to the top, it involved a little bit different equipment. So he was a fairly proficient climber, so sometimes we simul-climbed a couple of the pitches on a couple of harder moves that were, you know, low fifth class or whatever, and off the deck pretty good. Then we would just short pitch it. So I would just lead up the thing and then pull him up, you know, belay him up as normal, but it would only be maybe a 50-foot pitch or something. So hence the name short pitching. This rope is a 9mm, and so it's rated to be a single-use rope, unlike the first one that I pulled up, which you wouldn't really want to do any serious lead climbing on that thing because it's just not beefy enough. So this one is, so it gets guides approval for that, and it also can be part of a double rope system too. So so pretty versatile rope. This one goes at 40 meters, so that was plenty long for what we needed. Then back to blue ice again. I must have got a little carried away with them when they started making things, I don't know, a year or two ago. Maybe it was longer, but that's when I found out about them. So this is, I think you can see it. I think this harness weighs 5 ounces. And so it has the advantage. You could say, well, why don't you just use that on the snow? And I could have done that, but I wanted the other one. But the reality about this one is a great ice climbing harness and a great, more technical harness in scenarios where you're not on heavy duty, serious rock. Although I have rappelled that 200-foot rappel, I have done it in this, and it's comfortable enough. But it's super light, like I said, 5 ounces. But what it does have over the other harness, the other super alpine harness, if you want to call it that, is it's got great loops for hanging gear. So I had a pretty good chunk of gear on here. I'll show you the gear in a second. But I had a pretty good chunk of gear on here, as you might in a traditional multi-pitch climb or a lead climb. And the harness felt great. So it's super comfy, and yet it still doesn't take up much, and it also has places for ice clippers. So so definitely an all-around alpine harness as well. If I had to choose between this one or the other one, I would definitely take this one. This one is definitely more versatile by far. Okay, then what did I carry for protection? So just a quick note, I never used to use these gloves, sub-belay gloves or whatever, rappel gloves, whatever you want to call them. I never used to use them, but until I just thought, well, maybe I should try it one time. And I was like, oh, I went 2 decades without them, and they are the bomb. So in this scenario, because we were going to be in the backcountry a little bit, I have full fingers, and I like that because I could also use these. They doubled up for camp at night when it got a little bit colder. So if I just show a couple things that I brought, of course, this bringing some nuts and micro nuts mandates the use of this, the nut tool. And then I go down, and these were the ones that I brought. Now again, I'm trying, because I'm in the backcountry, not too far out, but still it's a hike. I'm definitely looking at conserving weight and getting the most versatility I can. So I found out about these offset nuts. I don't know, they've probably been around for a long time, and a lot of other guys would laugh thinking you just found out about them. These things are the bomb. They are so much better, to me anyway, in inserting all kinds of cracks than a standard nut. So they are offset on all directions, so it gives you just a lot more versatility. So I don't know if you could see that, but if I turn it, every turn gives you a different offset. So there's no symmetry involved, which means that you can place these things in flaring cracks and descend in decreasing cracks or whatever the deal is. So I have found them much easier to place. And then their little brethren, when I get one of these in a slot, you know, it may not hold that great, but it's sort of fun to put them in. These are the little peanuts, I think they're called. So they come in a group of 6, I think. And so I'm also surprised when I get those guys in. So super helpful. I found these nuts, this whole set of nuts, to be very useful, and they can serve in place of having to carry, you know, a bunch of cams or whatever the deal is. So again, the climbing was not that hard, but still, on the other hand, I did say, and I knew this climb, going up the 500 feet going up. I knew about it because I've done it several times before, of course. And so I brought a few cams. So I think I got 2, and I think I also brought a number 2. So I brought those and used those several times in placements. Then of course, we got some quick draws. I love these Petzl quick draws because between the carabiners and the quick draw itself, super light. But I also like these Helium Wild Countries. They're also fantastic. So it's a great backcountry quick draw, if you ask me. And then, of course, no alpine rack would be complete without this use of this sort of expandable alpine draw. So it's like this so far, and then if I want to get it longer, I just unclip, pull, and then I've got a longer one, which of course in alpine routes, pretty significantly important given that they move around all over the place. So most people know how to do this, but just a rehash. So I'm going to take these two like so. I'm going to insert the one carabiner into the other, and then I'm going to clip that same carabiner into the two strands on the other side, pull it tight. That's how the quick draw goes back onto your harness. And that is it for that. I usually bring some sort of other runner like this that I can, and this is an old one, so if I have to leave something, I'd rather leave something like this rather than a brand new runner. So it serves two purposes, like you want most things to do in the backcountry. Serves as my little handy organizer, and it also serves as a runner I can jettison if I need to. All right, so now we're on the bigger bag. You can't see that because I'm not going to show you that because I don't know how to move the camera that well. But oh, look at that. But I've got a bigger bag down here, and so I have got the standard. So this is a 70 meter rope, right? It's a 9.4 Sterling. For some reason, I love Sterling. I've been climbing on Sterling for a long time. I think they have a great mix of rope handling, softness. The knots stay tied, and they're super durable. So you know, it's hard to imagine how you'd get anything else from a different rope. I'm sure there's other great ropes out there, but I don't know. I become like a loyalist to certain companies, maybe because maybe one good thing is that I know what they have and don't have. However, so 70 meters, so that's pretty standard these days. And then of course, this was a four pitch route, and so I brought my Tommy Caldwells because they're more comfortable than my katanas, although my katanas, I have done 4 pitches with those without taking them off. Mostly because I'm getting older now, and I learned, I don't know, a few years ago that if I got the shoes super tight like I did when I was younger, it was super painful, and I don't really know that I climb that much better in those. So I think having a little more comfort, my toes are out now, and they're a little bit more splayed out, and I don't really know that, maybe I'm just getting older and I don't climb as hard as I used to, but I would never go back to ultra tight fitting shoes. But that's just me. So the Tommy Caldwells are super comfy. And I'm also surprised that, given the fact that they're probably almost one size bigger than I used to wear back in the day when I was climbing harder, I still find that they edge fantastic. So yeah, not too many reasons to go with a super tight shoe, at least for me. Okay, then I got my standard harness here, rock climbing harness from Arc'teryx. Probably the best one I've ever had for sure. Highly recommend this for all kinds of reasons. But they've got the great gear loops, they got all that sort of stuff. Everything else is super comfortable. This is the first time I've had a rock climbing harness that hasn't had adjustable leg loops. So, and I thought maybe that would be a problem, but it isn't. So I probably wouldn't go back to adjustable leg loops because I already have the Alpine ones. So anyway, maybe that just means I'm making just a tad bit more money now in my old age, and I can afford 2 harnesses instead of just one all-purpose. However, having said all that, so I do bring this guy, right, the ATC, although it's the Petzl version of that. Then and then of course you always got to have on your rack, you got to have at least one HMS Munterbiner, preferably 2. And I think I even got this new one that I really like, this little tiny one that I forget what it's called, but Petzl just came out with it, and it's a smaller version of their standard one. You can see if I put them side by side, one is quite a bit smaller than the other one. So obviously that means lighter, more compact, easier to carry things. And if you're using narrower diameter ropes, including the 9.4, the HMS head moves back and forth through that carabiner just fine. So, and then I've got a cordelette here. And then on this one I showed, so I did happen to pick up a pair of fingerless gloves from Hestra. Hestra is my glove of choice, almost entirely because they're fantastically solid and they have a European sizing. So my hand size is right between a medium and a large. So if I get medium gloves, like from Black Diamond or any glove manufacturer that's using American sizing, the medium is too tight. If I get a large, it's too big, too loose. So if you go with European sizing, I take a size 9, and they fit literally. They fit, I don't want to say like a glove, but they do fit spectacular. So the fingerless one is good when I was using this I kept them on for longer periods of time. So I like that I had more dexterity than the full glove. All right, and then you carry a couple little extra here, and of course you want to have 1 or 2 extra carabiners on your harness, and they almost always are locking carabiners because that is more versatile in a multi-pitch situation for the most part. And then I've got my gear rack right here. It wasn't all of that I had, but because I had done the climb before, I was pretty good at figuring out what I needed and didn't need. So I knew I needed a couple of number 3s and a couple of number 2s, although I just have one of each on the rack here. And then, of course, I got your basic carabiners here. One quick thing, I started using these a couple years ago, and I'm still mixed on whether I like the auto locking feature. There's some good things about it, but I think sometimes it's just cumbersome. So still jury out for me on that. Carry some double runners here and an assortment of cams. And then I think when I had this, I also had a chunk of those offset nuts. So more stuff, a little beefier as we go, and that sort of matches up with the forces that might be involved. So snow is a different medium altogether, and I enjoy snow because it takes a fair amount of judgment, maybe even some good luck, good weather, whatever, to anchor yourself well enough. But there is something about it that I like, the mystery of it, and plus I grew up in Minnesota, so I love snow. So anyway, that was the intent of the video, is to show different types of gear. You can certainly take some of this gear on all these climbs, as I showed, but some of the gear is very specific. So there's no real reason to take pickets on a rock climb. At least if you want to look cool, you would not do that. So anyway, just examples. I hope it was helpful, and I will see you next time.